And we are live. Good evening, everybody. Carson Meredith with you from the Wave Now Studios. It is 7:30 on this Saturday night, May 17th. It is the calm after the storm. Once again, it feels like we've had to say that a lot this spring, and here we go again. We're going to spend some time tonight kind of recapping yesterday as a whole, because some of you, as we have seen you guys talk about on social media, didn't see much, while others, of course, saw a horrific tragedy, especially just outside of our coverage area last night. So we're going to give you the latest information on where things stand in Southeast Kentucky, in Somerset, in London. We'll talk about where the storm surveys stand at this point, and then we're just going to spend some time looking back at the radar from last night, because there was a lot of different pieces to the puzzle. And it was one particular supercell that stuck out above the rest. That was exactly what we were worried about last night, was any supercells that could get ahead of the main line of storms. And unfortunately, it was a supercell that caused all of the damage and destruction and loss of life in southern Kentucky. So let's just go right to the map. Let's be clear right out of the gate. Any information that I am about to talk to you and share with you tonight is preliminary. It is not official. This is going to be a very lengthy storm survey, mainly because this is a very wide area that our friends at the National Weather Service are going to have to survey. This was a long track tornado in all likelihood. And those take days upon days upon days to get the surveys done, and then write up all the damage, where it was and when, and things of that nature. The most information that I can give you about the storm surveys right now, as the time of this video at 7:30 on Saturday, is the damage in Somerset, Kentucky in particular has been rated preliminary. It was preliminary. Easy for me to say. I'm tired. I'm sorry. The preliminary rating in Somerset is an EF2 tornado. There was an initial report late last night that there was a mass casualty situation in Somerset. That was not necessarily the case. However, according to Governor Beshear, we did have one fatality in Pulaski County, which is the county that Somerset is in. It's the county seat. So the preliminary information that we have for Somerset in particular is EF2 damage. That could, of course, still change, but that's where we are at this point. And that's really the only specific information we have right now when it comes to EF ratings from this storm. As we mentioned, this could very well be a long track tornado when it's all said and done. And that takes a long time to compile all the damage information, collect the photos and what have you, and write it all up. So right now, that's the only information we have for you, is that EF2 at least went through Somerset last night. And looking at kind of the roadmaps around Somerset in particular, based on what roads are closed, it looks as though this tornado went through the southern portions of Somerset primarily. It missed city center, not by much, obviously, but it looks like the tornado went through the southern part of Somerset. So that's where we are with official numbers at this point. All we have is EF2 preliminary in Somerset. Now, as we zoom things out, you kind of get the idea of just how wide of an area that the Weather Service is going to have to look at here. And also keep in mind, this portion of Kentucky is covered by the Weather Service office in Jackson, Kentucky. This is not covered by Louisville. Although our friends at the Louisville Weather Service are helping with these surveys, this is a storm that went through the Jackson, Kentucky Weather Service coverage area. So you notice to the west of Somerset, we've got surveys ongoing in Russell County, which is just outside of our area, as well as the rest of Pulaski County. So From the Ely community, which you see right here, there was some reported damage in that community in Russell County, Kentucky last night. From Ely all the way basically to the western edge of Somerset, the National Weather Service in Louisville is conducting those storm surveys with that part of the storm. As far as the damage in Laurel County, in London, Kentucky, that survey has not started yet. And obviously, we're about an hour away from darkness. I doubt they'll be able to get any surveying done tonight because you got to have a lot of daylight to do these surveys effectively, right? Just be patient. Just be patient. It may be until the middle of next week before we get a final rating and a final wind estimate from this tornado. But obviously the most extensive damage and the most horrific loss of life took place in London. The governor did a briefing around 5 o'clock this evening. 18 Kentuckians lost their life last night. 17 of those fatalities were in Laurel County. You would presume in and around London where that tornado went through. And I didn't get an exact number, but many of those fatalities were seniors, unfortunately. So if you know anybody in London or Somerset, we're thinking of you, we're praying for you, and we're praying for your family as well, obviously, because it's going to be another long cleanup, this time now in the southeastern part of the state. But that's where things stand at this point. Again, the survey in London has not started yet. My guess is it would tomorrow or Monday at the absolute latest, but probably tomorrow they'll get going on that survey. Somerset, we mentioned the preliminary rating is an EF2, but there could be further damage west of Somerset. In fact, there is damage west of Somerset towards the Ely community in Russell County. And what we're going to have to figure out, or what the Weather Service will have to figure out, is was this one single long track violent tornado, or did it kind of hopscotch over the landscape? You notice it went through a good chunk of Daniel Boone National Forest, which thank the Lord it did. I can't imagine if there was a lot of population in that part of the world where that tornado went through, it'd be worse than it already is. And also keep in mind, that's very challenging terrain to look at storm damage in the Daniel Boone National Forest. So that's another thing our friends at the Weather Service are going to have to deal with as well. They'll probably have to get the drones up to assess damage in the forest itself. Of course, it's just trees, but you still want to know if it was a long track tornado or if it was skipping along the landscape last night. So that's where we are at this point. As far as wave country is concerned, were no storm surveys today. None. I do not believe we had any tornadoes in our area last night in wave country in our 34 counties. But boy, was it a close call. I've been rambling here for 10 minutes, so let me get to the comments. I appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully this kind of gives you a good idea of where we are now when it comes to assessing the damage and what lies ahead. Because it's going to take a while to get all this sorted out. Weather Geek says hello. Kudos to Brian, Ryan, and Kevin for their outstanding coverage last night. Yes, absolutely. Those three knock it out of the park every time. And it's an honor to work with them. And they did their job as good as they ever will, good as they've ever done last night. And they'll only get better from here. So we appreciate those kind words. Thanks, Weather Geek. Adam says hello from Bloomington, where a pretty strong storm went through. I would imagine we'll get some, forgive me, Adam, I haven't looked at the information from Indianapolis, but I'm sure we'll get some info on the possible tornado up there. In fact, Adam says they did a survey today, said that tornado in Bloomington was an EF2 as well. That's not surprising based on what I saw last night. Shonda has family in Somerset, but they're all okay. Well, that's great. That is great to hear, Shonda, that your family is okay. Let's see. Angela says that 70-mile-an-hour wind that roared through Spencer County was interesting. Yeah, that was that's kind of a good segue, Angela, to talk about what happened in our area. But before we get there, I just want to kind of give you a big picture recap of what we went through yesterday, because remember, we had the morning storms too. So let me rewind the radar here. Come on. There we go. So this is 7 o'clock Friday morning. So basically 36 hours ago. First round of storms well underway. We had numerous severe thunderstorm warnings yesterday morning for hail, primarily. Some wind, but mainly hail. A lot of you sent us photos of those dimes and nickel and quarter-size hail. And that was just kind of the appetizer for what lied ahead. And as we scroll through the rest of the morning, you notice around 9 or 10 o'clock. And remember, this is in archive radar. This is not current. Those warning boxes are not current. I just wanted to show you how it all played out, right? 10 o'clock in the morning, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Still had a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. Pretty impressive storm around 9:30 in Bowling Green yesterday morning. And you had this first wave of storms and you wondered, okay, is this going to bust the evening round of storms? Are we going to be too socked into clouds? Are we going to be able to recover with those temperatures? We're going to get more instability for the afternoon. Well, by 2 o'clock, it was wide open. And we all just kind of had that feeling in the weather office, like, oh boy, it's going to be a rough night. And by around 2 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, here was the main show getting its act together in Missouri. It was literally just a string of supercells lined up north to south, just outside of St. Louis. And as it pushed east, it just kept on intensifying. Of course, we had that significant tornado that went right through St. Louis around 3:30 our time yesterday afternoon, 2:30 their time. I believe it was a fatal tornado, unfortunately, that went right through the metro in St. Louis. I mean, if you've ever been to St. Louis, you know it's pretty compact. So a lot of folks were affected by that tornado as it rolled through St. Louis yesterday afternoon. And those storms just kept going and going and going. Now, this is 5 o'clock yesterday. See that supercell moving into Paducah? That supercell started near Mountain View, Missouri, around lunchtime yesterday. And it just blitzed eastward across southern Kentucky. And that was the supercell that produced the destruction in Somerset and London. Unbelievable. I mean, it was going for close to 500 miles, 12 hours. It just kept going and going and going, and it would not stop. So as we kept going through the evening, you see just east of Paducah, our radar tools were picking up on possibly some debris west of Hopkinsville. And again, this is archived information when you see the warnings. In fact, let me just take those off because I don't want to confuse you all. There we go. But you see, it was a classic powerhouse supercell that started all the way out in Missouri, kept going across southern Kentucky. And what gave this supercell the power that it had was the fact that there was no other storms to the south of it. So it had a wide open warm sector to just feed it and to keep it going through the afternoon into the evening, which obviously is what caused all of the problems. Now, you zoom things out a little bit, you go further and closer into our area, we started to have a few supercells fire up. I was asleep because I had to work this morning, but I believe the guys had to go on air for this storm. It went tornado warned in our northern counties, but no tornado touched down from what we have heard in Jackson and Jennings County. But this was the main show down here. We'll keep going through the evening. Look at that lightning. Goodness gracious. So this is around 8:30. You see that supercell right over Bowling Green. Numerous hail reports with that supercell as it went through Bowling Green. It was a hail producer more than anything at first. It was dropping baseballs out near Paducah. So it was It was a powerhouse supercell, even with the hail, rather than just the tornado, obviously. So we kept going later into the night. This is when we started to get the tornado warnings for Adair County for our friends down in Columbia. While at the same time, you had this cluster of severe storms developing and getting its act together to the west. And sure enough, Shonda, I think was, where was your comment? I said yesterday here on Wave Weather Now, I wasn't sold on the clusters of storms splitting. I guess I kind of am now, because we did indeed have two bigger clusters of severe storms. One of which went up towards Indianapolis. The other went right through our area. So maybe I need to start paying attention to that whenever I see that trend in the future, right? But nonetheless, those storms were still significant across Meade County, Breckinridge County, widespread wind damage. And it was that cluster of storms you see on the left side of the screen that produced unbelievable wind in the metro. I'll touch on that here in just a second. So you kind of had this multi-mode, if you will, of severe weather. You had the supercells, specifically that southern one, and then you had the cluster of storms that had more of a damaging wind threat with it. We keep going through the evening. Went a little too fast there. 10 o'clock, 10:30, those storms are along the I-65 corridor to the west. But as you look at that supercell, well, I don't want to say it weakened, obviously, but you didn't see as many reds with it, or dark reds, or even pinks, which leads me to believe that it cycled. A lot of times, you hear us say that a lot, where these storms kind of weaken a little bit, they kind of reset themselves, and then they start to ramp back up. And once that recycle happened with the supercell, that's when things went downhill even faster than they already were. So we'll focus in on that supercell now. Again, it went through Adair County, and from what we could tell, did not produce a tornado in Adair County. But you can see it starts to get its act together. This is 10:30. You can see that hook that's so classic with the supercell right here. And it was right on the bottom of that hook where that tornado started causing its path of destruction. Now, there was damage, as we mentioned earlier, as far west as Ely, Kentucky. That's a little tiny town near in Russell County. So we may have had that tornado first touch down in Russell County. That's why they're looking at Russell County doing the surveys. But it obviously kept pushing east, impacting Somerset around 10:30, 11 o'clock. You can see it really intensify as it rolled through Somerset. And man, I mean, this is a classic supercell that quite honestly you would see in the plains. I mean, it just wicked. You see how you have that red shade on radar kind of forming a little donut hole? That is a classic sign of a large violent tornado when you're looking at radar. And even then, the pinks and the dark reds was that a large hail core north of the tornado. So as we mentioned, that tornado went through mainly the southern edge of Somerset, the southern portions of the city. And then as it kept pushing east and northeast, went through the Daniel Boone National Forest, like we talked about. And around 11:30, you can see that it made its way towards London. And the same thing with London, too. We talked how Somerset, it was mainly on the south side of town. Same story here in London, too. It was mainly in the southern portions of the city. Classic supercell that, quite honestly, you don't see in this part of the state very often. It's been a long time since we've seen something like this. Maybe go back to March 2nd, 2012. That's the last time I can remember seeing supercells like this in this part of the state. And there it went, close to 11:30. Went through London. And it still kept causing problems even further east than that, up towards Manchester, Kentucky, and Hyden, Kentucky. Got close to Hazard. before finally the cluster of severe storms behind it caught up with it and put an end to it. But the damage had obviously been done. And then after that first supercell, here came another one. And that's another thing the Weather Service is going to have to figure out. Was this from the first supercell or the second supercell? My gut tells me that a lot of the damage, if not all of it, was from this first one. Because a lot of times when you have a trailing supercell behind the first one, the second one can't really get its act together because the first one took a lot of the energy. So my guess is it was this first supercell that caused all the destruction, unfortunately. As we went past midnight, you notice how those supercells kind of get eaten alive by the big cluster of storms, and the rest of the state was clear by about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was truly a one-man show for the most part when you look at the supercells. In fact, I'll put radar into motion. This is from Friday morning. So that first round goes through. We're wide open, warm sector. Here comes round 2. There's that supercell near Paducah. Keep your eye on that and just watch it go. That is a classic textbook supercell that you put in weather books for the meteorology students in 20 years, less than that. So yeah, that's what it looked like last night. And it was that supercell that, of course, caused all the damage down in southern Kentucky. When you look at the storm reports, I mean, it's unbelievable. If you did not see any severe weather last night, you should be very, very blessed. I saw somebody this morning that wanted to be a smart aleck and said, "Oh, I only saw rain and thunder at my house." Well, you know what? Good. You should be grateful because there's a lot of people down in London and Somerset that probably wish they only saw rain and thunder too. I just don't understand why some people think that, why they get mad that they didn't see a tornado. I must be a psychology thing. I don't know. Anyway, as we zoom in on our area, obviously you can see all the damage reports from the supercell that we just spent a lot of time talking about. But you also see this secondary pocket of wind damage right over the metro. At Ali International Airport last night, just after 10 o'clock, we had an 82 mile per hour wind gust. 82. That is the strongest wind gust that we have measured in the city of Louisville since April 3rd, 1974. That was a pretty big weather day around here, wasn't it? And the main reason why we saw that wind gust that high back in 74 was because the tornado in 74 was literally right across the Waterson Expressway from the airport. So it was basically sampling wind gust from that tornado as it was moving through the city. I think that gust back in, say, 74 was an 84 mile an hour gust at the airport. Think about that. This was a cluster of severe storms, still dangerous, but not like 74. It still produced those gusts around 82 miles an hour. Wild, wild stuff. Of course, we had a lot of trees down, a lot of power outages. I was coming to work this morning and all those little tree limbs were all over the place in the subdivisions and the neighborhoods. So keep that in mind, really for the next day or so, because especially those less traveled roads, they may not have been cleared out by traffic. So just watch for some of those little limbs as you're out and about over the next day or so. All right. I'll answer a few more comments about this, and then we got to move on to what's next. Another alert day for Tuesday. It just won't end. Let's see. Adam, how long do you store those archives? I think our system can store the archive that I showed you for 48 hours. Our main weather graphics computer system can. There's a lot of different other resources that NOAA provides that you can type in specific radar imagery and the dates that you want, and they'll give you copies that you can put into radar software. I had to do that quite a bit in college. I know a lot of our team has done that before as well. So There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but for what I just showed you, I think it can hold it for about 48 hours. So I won't be able to show you that radar again tomorrow night when we chat. Let's see here. Destiny's originally from Corbin. Still has friends in London and Corbin. And they were saying there were 2 tornadoes that came through. Well, we kind of talked about that, Destiny. That's the big question the Weather Service has to figure out. You know, you had that first supercell that went through that, in my opinion, caused most of the damage. But there may have been a tornado with that second supercell behind the first one that could have caused more damage. We just don't know yet. We have to figure out the exact path of the first one. And then was there a second path? And you have to look at the timing and match the radar imagery with the damage path. And it's a very detailed and lengthy process that our friends of the Weather Service go through to make sure that we have that accurate information to share with you guys and for those historical records as well. But we're not sure yet if it was just that first supercell that had the violent tornado and that was it, or if that second supercell caused more problems too. Good question. We'll let you know. We'll get more information over the next few days. It might not be as quick as normal after a severe weather event, but we'll get it eventually. I promise. Let's see. Mayfield, you're right. Mayfield was an EF4. I don't like speculating on ratings. It was a violent tornado, though. I can promise you that. But beyond that, I don't get into this game of, oh my gosh, was it a 4? Was it a 5? We don't have time for it. Let the experts do their job, and then we'll go from there. Because I know a lot of people like to guess what the rating was. But yeah, Mayfield was an EF4, and that was the strongest tornado we've seen most recently in Kentucky, back in 2021, of course. Let's see. Scott, your blue tie should be your main tie for when you're on TV. Thanks. I like this tie. I wore it this morning, and I'll wear it again on TV tonight. Appreciate it. Let's see. All right. I think we're all in good shape. So let's just go ahead and turn our attention now to what's next. Tonight's fine. It was a nice day, wasn't it? More clouds are filtering in, those high clouds. It might be a pretty nice sunset here in about 30 to 45 minutes, so get your cameras ready. Our current temperature down to 74. It's been breezy today, but it's been a comfortable breeze, not too terribly humid. Had some gusts upwards of, well, you see the numbers just updated, now down to 73 as we close in on 8 o'clock. The wind is starting to relax. We did have some gusts around 30 to 35 miles per hour today. But all in all, that was the only complaint. Tonight, those high clouds you just saw on the SkyTrack camera, they'll keep on moving in. And it's going to be slightly cooler tonight. 58's our forecast low here in Louisville. A lot of you will be in the mid-50s when we wake up tomorrow. And Sunday looks pretty good. It'll be not necessarily that bright blue sky you saw earlier today, but it'll be that mix of sun and clouds. And we do have a very tiny rain chance tomorrow. Most of the activity is going to stay south and west of us on Sunday, but some models try to squeeze out a couple of sprinkles south of Louisville tomorrow during the day. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but we'll cover ourselves and say there's a tiny chance if you live south of Louisville, you could get a couple of sprinkles. Shouldn't be a big deal. 79, our high temperature on Sunday. All good. Let's jump to Monday because that's when the weather pattern turns active yet again. Now, when we look at the storm chances for Monday, I've actually been able to drop the storm chances a little bit. There's a front down to our south and west that's causing all kinds of problems in Texas tonight, or at least the system is. But the warm front with that system down in Texas is going to lift into our area starting on Monday. And as it does so, there could be a few pockets of showers and storms that just ride along that front. especially around midday. Some of the high-resolution models starting to pinpoint midday Monday for the highest chance for some showers and perhaps some thunderstorms. But the high-resolution models are trending with a lot more dry time on Monday too, which is a good thing. So here's Futurecast. Quiet Monday morning, but as we get towards midday, you kind of see one of those clusters of showers and storms to our west that may try to sneak in. You notice the heavier storms as well across western Kentucky. We'll have to watch those storms to make sure that they behave, which most storms this year have not, as we all know. But there's at least a low-end chance that some of those storms in our far southwestern communities may have a little bit of wind and perhaps some hail. I'm not talking baseball-size hail, but maybe some dimes or nickel-size hail, okay? It's a low risk for severe weather on Monday, but I'm not going to say we're severe clear necessarily. We'll watch it. Just one or two of those pulse-type storms that might flare up, briefly causing some gusty winds. But you notice that first cluster of showers and storms starts to move out after 3 or 4 o'clock. And this particular forecast model keeps much of the rest of the day quiet. So not all hope may be lost on Monday when it comes to dry time. I think we'll have quite a bit of dry time now looking at some of the high resolution models that have come in today. So that's the story for Monday. Scattered storms, especially south of Louisville. Some could be briefly strong. You notice a marginal risk for severe weather. Level 1 risk covers basically the western half of our area. And the SPC giving themselves some wiggle room here, just in case some of those storms may try to sneak a little closer to Louisville. But I think they got a pretty good handle on it, that we may see 1 or 2 pulse storms, where they pulse up real quick, like you see in the summer, have some gusty winds, perhaps some small borderline severe hail. So that's the story for Monday. Now we go to the big show, which is Tuesday. Here we go again. Doesn't end. This is Futurecast. This is the European model, so it's not a high resolution model yet. I want to wait a little longer to show those because we're not fully in range just yet. But the European model, and really all of the models we have at our disposal, have been very consistent on numerous waves of heavy rain and storms on Tuesday, perhaps as early as the Tuesday morning commute. Obviously, if we have heavier rain moving in for the Tuesday morning commute, we may have to expand that alert day to be all day as opposed to just during the afternoon and evening. Regardless, we're going to have those waves of showers and storms around all day on Tuesday. Emphasize all day on Tuesday, because that may work in our favor. Why? Because we wouldn't have the opportunity to destabilize. We may not have the opportunity to see more sunshine Tuesday afternoon. So this severe threat on Tuesday, while still there and while we still need to pay attention to it, does not, in my view, appear to be as intense or extreme as what we just dealt with last night. I say that cautiously because the threat is still there on Tuesday. The threat would really ramp up for severe storms as a cold front starts to push in from the west in the afternoon and evening. I just said generally after 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. I don't have an end time on the alert day yet. I'm just saying after 2 p.m. is when that risk for severe storms would start to climb. That's when we would start to have to see if we get cloud clearing, if we can warm up, if we can destabilize. If we don't, we'll just have to deal with waves of heavy rain and storms. If we do have some clearing, here we go again. Maybe another round of severe weather Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday night. Now, as the low pressure hangs around nearby, heading into Wednesday, that will keep off and on showers and maybe some thunder around into Wednesday, possibly into Thursday before we quiet things down by Friday. The severe risk for Tuesday, trying to see if I can. I'm going to try to change the color here because I don't like drawing a yellow line while you guys are looking at a yellow map. There we go. So you notice our entire area is under a level 2 slight risk on Tuesday. The greater threat this go round is going to be to our south and west, or south, I should really say. Down into Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, you see that enhanced risk, that level 3 risk down to the south, mainly because they're not going to see as many waves of rain and storms earlier in the day. So they're going to have more opportunity to stabilize down south of us. And they're going to have more moisture too, to allow these storms to get intense quickly. However, the threat here is still there. It's a level 2 slight risk, so we're going to keep the alert day in place. While this episode may not be quite as significant as what we dealt with last night, I think there's certainly the possibility we could have watches and warnings on Tuesday. Too early to talk about specific severe hazards right now. But it could be similar in the sense that we'll have to watch for isolated supercells ahead of a main line of severe storms. Should we see that severe weather potential play out? I know you guys want more specifics, but that's really all I can do at this stage of the game. All severe hazards possible, mainly after 2 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. But at least for now, it doesn't look to be quite as intense or extreme as what we just dealt with. All right. That's kind of my thinking as to how Tuesday is going to play out for now. Let's see. Ashley, hey, so we don't need any more severe weather. Kentucky is closed. Yeah. If only Mother Nature got that memo, right? 4 allergy medications, and I'm still going to suffer from the allergies. Yeah, we're moving out of tree pollen season, and now we're getting into grass pollen season. So if you struggle with the grass pollen especially, beware. It's not going to be fun. ZK trying to go to church Sunday morning, rain between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. If anything, just a couple sprinkles. That's it. That is all we've got on the cards for tomorrow. And even then, I'm not overly concerned about it. Just a 10% chance for a few sprinkles. That's it. Let's see. Tanya's asking about Indiana on Tuesday. Yeah, this is one of those situations for now where everybody is under the same severe risk. But I would not be surprised if that risk started to shift more towards Kentucky again as we get closer in time. So all of us still have that threat for now on Tuesday, but we may trend a little further south to where this might be more of a Kentucky issue than anything as we get closer. Stay tuned. Let's see. Shonda, tornadoes and severe storms on the table. Yes, unfortunately. But again, I'm not trying to downplay it, guys, but I'm just trying to make you feel a little more comfortable or feel a little better that I don't see this being on the level of what we saw last night. Could there be severe storms? You bet. Could there be tornadoes? Yes. Is it going to be, catastrophic? Never say never, but I don't see that at this point. This is more of a traditional severe weather threat that we're used to around here, not an extreme setup like we had last night. Let's see. Austin, good question. Do we see any signs of a quieter weather pattern at the end of May or early June? I wouldn't necessarily say quieter, but it doesn't necessarily look severe all the time. Look at the 10-day, though, guys. I mean, the next weekend is Memorial Day weekend, which is crazy to think about. As busy as this year has been, it's flown by, too. Once we get past Wednesday, we're going to have some of those wraparound showers, maybe some thunder. Thursday, that chance is lower for those wraparound showers, but it's cooler. It's cold for late May, 65. That's our forecast for Louisville on Thursday. And I think a lot of you will barely get up to 61 or 62 because it'll be cloudy, maybe a little misty at times. It'll feel like March again or something. Now, as we get into Memorial Day weekend, there's still some questions as to any pieces of energy that might dive in from the north and west. Now, because it's a cooler pattern, it's not necessarily a huge severe weather concern on Memorial Day weekend, but there may be some pockets of showers that we have to dodge at times. Right now, I've only got 20% rain chances because the models are really wishy-washy on when those particular waves of moisture might move in. And it may not happen at all. We may be totally dry. So right now, I don't think the weekend's a washout. Sorry, I'm trying to straighten out my tie. Anyway, there we go. So I don't think the weekend's going to be a total washout next weekend, but we'll watch for at least a few waves of showers Saturday and Sunday. Monday for Memorial Day itself, there might be a more substantial front that scoots through, and that could give us a higher storm chance. So we'll have to watch that for Memorial Day itself on Monday. But the big headline, once we get past Wednesday, it's going to get a little cool, at least for late May standards. Speaking of late May, I'll show you the 2-week temperature outlook for the country. And you notice a lot of the eastern U.S. is expected to be cooler than normal, with the bullseye right on top of us. So if you are a fan of the spring-like temperatures like me, you're very much looking forward to this more comfortable holiday weekend that we might have on the horizon next week. But yeah, as far as a quieter weather pattern, Austin, it always gets busy in the summer with those pulse thunderstorms. Now, a cooler pattern like this wouldn't necessarily mean those pulse pop-up storms, but we could still have some bouts of rain and storms to deal with from time to time. Hopefully not as intense as what we've had so far this spring. Angela, it's wash, rinse, and repeat. Sure seems like it, right? Sarah, I think all of y'all need to go on a group vacation. That's when we know the weather is chill. Well, usually, Sarah, to be honest, sometimes it's the opposite. Usually when the boss goes on vacation, we've got severe weather. But we could all use a vacation right now. That is for sure. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. So hopefully that recap of all the storms helped you understand how last night played out, why last night played out the way it did. And again, be patient on the information that we're going to be getting from the Weather Service in the days to come as far as what happened down in Somerset and London. It may not be until Wednesday of next week before we get final numbers. But we at least know Somerset, it was an EF2, at least an EF2. And I'm sure in London it's going to be rated much higher than that, unfortunately. So keep those folks in your prayers, and hopefully we can get through Tuesday without even more trouble than what we've already had. But we will keep a close eye on that Tuesday setup. Until then, get outside tomorrow. It's going to be a nice day. Maybe not bright blue, but looking pretty dry, comfortable, not bad. Can't complain too much about it. All right, that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks to all of you for watching. I will see you on television tonight at 11, on Sunrise tomorrow morning, and back here on the digital side of things around 7 or 7:15 tomorrow night. Take care. Talk soon. Good night.